Hello everyone, my name is Zia. I'm a PhD student at the University of Tulsa. Today I will present our work on securing a cloud system for cyber physical infrastructure. Let's get started. Here's our roadmap for the next 10 minutes. We'll start with the problem that motivated these researchers, then walk through our threat taxonomy and three-phase architecture. We'll bring it all together with a case study called GridGuard and wrap up with the future directions. So, what is the problem? Critical infrastructure is changing so fast. Power grids, manufacturing, logistics, all migrating to hybrid and cloud native architecture. Why? AI powered analytics, predictive maintenance, and real time automated control. But here's the challenge: the security domains that protect these systems, such as cloud security, AI governance, and industrial OT safety, each developed independently under fundamentally different assumptions. Cloud security assumes dynamic, multi-tenant environments. AI governance frameworks focus on model lifecycle risk, and OT safety standards like NARC-CIP assume static parameters and deterministic control. No existing frameworks bring all three together. That creates enforcement gaps where cross-layer attacker can exploit the same between these independently mature but operationally disconnected security domains. That's the gap our paper addresses. We make three primary contributions. First, we develop a life cycle stage threat taxonomy that synthesizes Maitri Atlas, WhatsApp, CSA Maestro, and NIST AI RMF into a unified threat landscape organized by three explicit attacker capability tiers. Second, we propose a unified reference architecture with three phases: a secure data factory, a hardened model supply chain, and a runtime governance layer that includes a novel latency circuit breaker for real-time safety. Third, we provided a scenario-based case study that demonstrated how layered defenses can defeat a coordinated multi-tier attack while simultaneously satisfying compliance requirements across all five frameworks. Let me walk through our threat taxonomy, which is organized around three attacker capability tiers. And this is important because the tier determines not just the threats, but which architectural layer is responsible for defense. Tier 1 adversaries have persistent access to a telemetry source. Think a compromised substation RTU or a malicious insider at a meter aggregation point. Their attacks target the data plane, data poisoning, RAG injection, and membership inference. Our secure data factory is designed specifically to counter this. Tier 2 adversaries control a stage in the model pipeline, such as CI/CD credentials, a package registry, or a dependency namespace. They can substitute or poison model artifacts before deployment. Our hardened supply chain addresses this. Tier 3 adversaries operate exclusively through the inference API via submitting crafted queries, adversarial prompts, or manipulating agentic tool use workflows. They need no privileged access. Our runtime governance layer handles this tier. The key insight here is that each tier maps to a specific lifecycle stage and a corresponding defense layer, creating a complete coverage model. Here's the big picture. Our unified reference architecture spans the entire AI lifecycle in three phases. Phase 1 handles everything from field telemetry ingestion through physics error validation. Phase 2 covers adversarial robustness testing in CI, cryptographic signing, and immutable artifacts storage. Phase 3 provides the operational shell with distroless containers, a governance sidecar enforcing OPR policies, and a latency circuit breaker derived from the real-world AGC timing constraints. Each phase is designed against the specific access requirements of its corresponding attacker tier, creating defense in depth from data ingestion all the way to runtime execution. Let's talk about phase 1. The ingestion pipeline starts at the field device level, such as RTUs, smart meters, edge nodes. Since any of this could be compromised, we cannot trust network location as a security signal. Instead, we assign each data producer a short-lived cryptographic credential. Telemetry arriving without a valid credential goes straight to the data letter queue for forensic analysis. Authenticated data then passed through a two-stage validation pipeline. Stage 1 checks schema compliance and monitors scale divergence against established baselines. But here's what makes our approach different. That is stage 2, which implements physics hour validation. The key insight is that a sophisticated adversary can craft data that looks statistically normal but violates physical laws. For example, they might inject a frequency deviation that passes every statistical test but is physically impossible given the actual system inertia. We detect this by cross-referencing frequency measurements against the swing equation using PMU measured inertia at reference nodes. If the numbers don't add up physically, the batch is rejected, regardless of how clean it looks statistically. This physics hour check is the architectural bridge between AI security and industrial reliability, and it is the only control that simultaneously satisfies AI governance, adversarial ML, and NARC CIP requirements. Phase 2 addresses model pipeline integrity. On the left, we have integrated adversarial robustness as a mandatory CI gate. Training data is augmented with FGSM and PGT perturbations. For CPS deployments specifically, we suggest physics-based simulators like GridLab-D to generate realistic fault scenarios. Every candidate model is benchmarked against the production baselines using the ART tool. Here's the critical rule. If a candidate achieves higher accuracy but lower robustness, it fails automatically. We never trade robustness for accuracy. On the right, artifact integrity. Validated models are signed immediately using SingStore with TPM-backed keys, then stored in an OCI-compliant immutable registry with write-once semantic. This eliminates the time to check to time to use window between validation and deployments. Every artifact carries full provenance metadata, signing identity, time step, and CI run ID. Phase 3 is where things get operationally interesting. The governance sidecar intercepts all outbound tool calls from AI agent and evaluates them against OPI Rego policies before any action can reach the grid or market system. This is critical because a manipulated agentic system can cause real harm while staying within its nominal permission scope, such as placing market bids, sending dispatch directives, all through legitimate channels. The sidecar enforces three types of constraints: velocity limits, that is no more than 5 control signals per minute; financial limits, that is no action can exceed 15% of the 1 hour rolling average; and scope limits based on least privilege principles. If the sidecar itself fails, it defaults to deny all. And because OPREG operates on policy rules rather than model output, even an adversary who obtains the system prompt has no power to alter the policy decision. The second major component is the latency circuit breaker with a 200 millisecond budget. This is derived from real-world constraints. The PSTR92 AGC loop budget is 400 milliseconds and we allocate half to AI inference. If a sponge attack or any other condition pushes inference latency beyond this threshold, the AI agent is automatically decoupled from the control loop and frequency regulation transfers immediately to on-prem group control. We treat a latency stalled model the same way we would treat a failed sensor, operationally equivalent. Now let's put all together with GitGuard. We constructed a coordinated three-phase attack against a hybrid transmission system operator, and what makes this scenario compelling is that the three phases are interdependent. Each one amplifies the others. If we look into the phase A compromised RTU injects a negative zero point 0.6 Hz frequency deviation into AMI telemetry. It is designed to look statistically normal, but it is physically impossible. If it succeeds, it biases the load forecast to underestimate demand. In phase B, a sponge detects the inference endpoint, pushing latency to 340 milliseconds, that well beyond our 200 millisecond safety threshold. This removes AI-assisted frequency response from the control loop, degrading real-time observability. In phase 3, the agentic dispatch optimizer, now operating on corrupted context from phase A, with real-time correction degraded by phase B, generates a market bid of 9K per megawatt hour against a prevailing price of $42. That's 186 times above the permissible threshold. The key point is phase A creates the distorted conditions and phase B suppresses the corrective mechanisms and phase C converts the degraded state into tangible financial and physical harm. Here's how the architecture layer defense responds automatically without human intervention. Layer 1 stops phase A at the ingestion gate. The compromised RTOS credential is revoked after firmware anomaly detection. But even without that, the physics validation catches it. The reported minus 0.6 Hz deviation would require an instantaneous 800 megawatt load variation, while reference PMOs are measuring less than 0.05 Hz. The badge is routed to the dead letter queue. No poison data enters the forecasting pipeline. Layer 2 handles phase B. When inference latency is 340 milliseconds, the circuit breaker fires an HTTP 503 and frequency regulation transfers to on-premise drop control within one monitoring cycle. The SIEM then correlates this event with the layer 1 DLQ alert, producing a multi-layer attack signature. Layer 3 contains phase C. The governance sidecar evaluates the 9K bit against two independent policies: the financial ceiling of $48.30 and the velocity limit of 5 signals per minute. Both produce deny decision independently. HTTP 403 is returned, the market connection is terminated, and dispatch authority reverts to the conservative baseline. All three attack phases contained automatically. For practical adoption of our framework, we propose a 5-level maturity model that enables any organizations to deploy incrementally, starting from baseline identity and signing at level 1 through physics-aware data validation, adversarial CI gating, runtime policy enforcement, and ultimately full cross-framework alignment at level 5. To conclude, a cloud convergence in safety critical infrastructure demands a shift from perimeter based defenses to lifecycle integrated security. Our scenario based case study demonstrates that a single cloud native control plane can simultaneously satisfy air governance, adversarial robustness, agentic safety, and industrial regulatory compliance without fragmented compliance engineering. The key innovations are physics-aware validation as the bridge between AI and industrial security, policy enforced governance that operates independently of model state, and fail-safe design that ensures AI augments rather than endangers existing safety systems. For future work, we are moving toward prototype implementation and production deployment, adversarial stress testing, and quantitative latency benchmarking under adversarial conditions. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to take any questions and you can reach me at the email shown on the screen. Thank you so much.